You're listening to the Sass Says podcast. I'm your host, Christy Rocha, also known as Sass. I identify as a woman, a wife, and a mother. That should tell you a lot already. And over the last few years, I've learned the value of talk therapy. I have seen how my inner work not only enhances my own well-being, but also my marriage, my parenting, my relationships. And in fact, you wouldn't be hearing this right now if it weren't for the work I've done. My mission is to debunk the misconceptions and stigmas around what therapy is and who it's for. Let's normalize working on our mental health and seeking help when needed. We've all heard of self-care, self-help, and self-love, but do you often wonder how to actually make it all happen? I do. You'll hear strategy-based conversations with professionals, as well as inspiring and validating stories from women who are just like you and me. Think of this podcast as the weekly therapy sessions you didn't know you needed, with a dash of sass, a lot of vulnerability, and me, relentlessly asking, but how? Hello, welcome. Today I'm joined by Jenna Hermans. She is a certified high-performance coach, mom of 4, entrepreneur, and author of Chaos to Calm, 5 Ways for Busy Parents to Get and Stay Grounded. With a master's degree in organizational management and over a decade of experience running human resources, through Chaos to Calm, Jenna uses easy-to-implement strategic tools and philosophies to guide busy parents and help them streamline the endless tasks they face every day. By creating more time and less stress, they can spend more hours appreciating their family, making sure they have what they need, and giving themselves the space they need and live their lives with intention and joy. Chapters of her book are targeted at efficiency, habits, communication, community, and self-care, and include how-tos and simple, small tasks that anyone can take to lower the pace of their everyday. Boom. All right, let's get right into it. Here's Jenna. Hey, Jenna. So nice to meet you. Thanks for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me, Christy. I'm so excited.
Yeah, you are the queen of calm. I love this, and I need more of it. So we're going to get right into it. I want to know, just actually sticking with that for a moment, were you always the queen of calm? Is this like an innate personality trait or just an innate quality about you, or was this learned or what?
I think there were parts of me that were always pretty grounded and calm, but I have ADD and I'm a Sagittarius, and so I definitely to the outside I wouldn't always appear calm, and I needed tools and strategies to hone in my calm, especially with the ADD mind. And so I haven't, I guess, to answer your question, no, I haven't always been calm, but it's something that's always been important to me, whether that was conscious or not. And as I got older, and especially after having 4 kids and business with my husband, and when I found myself when I was really struggling, that's when I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to hone in on my calm. And that's when I really made an intentional choice to add calm into my life.
Okay. I want to go back for a minute. You said something that was really interesting and touched on something I was talking about with my dad this weekend. You said outwardly, it might not have seemed that I was calm, but I guess inwardly, it's something that you've always been aware of and working on. We had a moment, my dad and I, where he said that he's not a person that gets like frazzled easily or stressed easily. And I kind of looked at him. I'm like, oh, really? Like, really? And he was like, no, the difference is that he goes, you're thinking of when I vent and sort of am outwardly like expressing myself. He goes, but inwardly, that feeling in my gut of essentially chaos, he's like, I don't get very often. And it was such an interesting thing. And you're touching on it there. I don't know. I don't have a question about it. I guess it's just like there's a difference. There's a difference between maybe what someone is externally expressing versus what's happening internally. And I'm
Yeah. And
sure
I
we'll
think,
get to that.
well, I think everyone's definition of calm is different also, right? So
Fair.
what you consider to be calm is different than what your dad considers to be calm, which is different than what I
Totally.
consider to be calm, and probably, your other family members. And so, um,
Totally.
but the way that I see calm is actually about the nervous system. And so it may not be that it's the mind or the actions that we're taking that dictate am I calm or not, but rather what's my internal state, and is my nervous system calm, right? I'm not feeling being the key word, frazzled. I'm not feeling like I need to flee the situation. I'm not feeling like I need to fight. I'm not feeling like I need to shut down and freeze, but rather I'm feeling, I feel good. I feel like I'm in flow. I have good energy. I'm feeling comfortable. I'm feeling positive, and it really comes down to that internal state. And that's why it looks different on the outside versus inside and what other people see, because their definition of calm is different.
Yeah. That's a really good distinction. Hmm. Okay. So that kind of complicates things for me now even more, because how do we take, strategies or tools and apply them to all different levels of calm and all different definitions of calm? Any thoughts on that initially before I get myself back on track here?
Well, I guess a comment on that is that what works for you may not work for another person.
Yeah, okay.
Right. And
You're right.
helping them
Yeah.
to feel like, okay, and that's why I use the term owning your calm. Do you feel like you're
Mm,
owning it for yourself? Because it is truly yours. It is so subjective on what brings you calm. Like, I know for me, if the kids are loud and having fun, and there's lots of, noise and movement in the house, that actually brings me calm. I love that. That makes me feel safe and makes me know that my kids are safe and feeling good, and that they're moving around and doing what they want to do in their joy. And for my husband, like, his calm is when things are quiet and there's
yeah.
not as much movement, and things are in his, calmer objectively, as most people would think it, going on, right?
Hmm.
And or not, it's not as stimulating. You're not
Hmm.
as stimulated visually, and what you're hearing, what you're feeling, the energy is not moving so much. And so that what
Yeah.
works for you doesn't work for me, what works for me doesn't work for you, sort of thing.
Yeah. That's also very interesting and something I hadn't thought about, because and actually, as you were talking about how like noise and kind of the action around the house brings you calm, my immediate thought was, oh man, I'm the opposite. But it depends on why there's no movement and why there's no noise. Because if it's because they're sitting in front of a screen for too long, the guilt starts making me the opposite of calm. And so what it's like, the house might actually be quiet and calm on the surface, but this is like that again. It's like internally, I'm going, okay, has it been too long? Have they had too much TV? What are they watching? Are they getting bad messages? Like, blah. It starts to feel
Mm-hmm.
the opposite of calm. Um, yeah, it's sounds simple, but it's not easy. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what it is. Okay. All right. So your book, Chaos to Calm. Talk to me a little about chaos. How do you see chaos in terms of, the context of your book and what you help parents do?
So the chaos, and the way that I define it, is, again, we go back to that nervous system, and
Mhm.
it's that feeling of overwhelm,
Okay.
right? I have so much, it's too much, right? I feel like there's so much I need to do or I should be doing, and I have too many tasks and responsibilities and not enough help, or I don't feel heard. And it's when the chaos is when the nervous system is really like activated,
Hmm. Okay.
and that usually stems from so much to do, not
Yeah.
feeling like I have enough help, not feeling like I'm taking care of myself, and I'm martyring for everybody else, that I'm not doing the things that fill my cup, and I'm just pouring out of an empty cup all the time.
Hmm. Okay. How do we differentiate, if we do at all, the difference between what might be, you know short-term current chaos versus sort of extended periods of chaos. Like I'm thinking of extended periods of like burnout, overwhelm, maybe going on weeks versus, this is a chaotic moment.
Mhm.
Do we handle those differently? How do you see the difference between like kind of short term in the moment chaos versus long term?
So I think they kind of stem from the same place, right? And I love that you bring that up, the concept of long-term chaos versus short-term chaos. And you a lot of times, right, with the short-term chaos,
Hmm.
when the house is a mess, you just had a bunch of kids over, the house is a mess, it looks like a tornado came through and maybe you had just you had just cleaned it. Oh my god, and no one's putting their stuff back away.
Yeah.
um versus the idea of the long term, I would think, is actually there's a similarity of the values and the habits of clean as you go, or when you're done using something, even with a friend, like, okay, the friend has left, you've used every toy and game in the house. Once they've gone, you don't just go onto a screen or make yourself a snack. It's
Hmm.
cleanup time again. And so I think what it comes down to is the concept of like your values, your routines, your structures. And if you have that infrastructure set up for yourself, for your family, those expectations set, that they can be approached similarly
Okay.
with the calm, right? And a part of the calm, a lot of it has to do with mindset, actually, right? Or majority, I'd say, has to do with mindset. And then there's a lot that is tangible in the infrastructure of how things run in the system of it all. But the mindset of knowing, okay, the kids just had a great time for hours. They were playing and laughing and having so much fun. Yes, the house is a mess. Let me reframe from that stress of like, oh my God, the house is a mess and I just cleaned it, to let's remind the kids, it's time to clean up, just like you do when you're here by yourself. Here are
Mhm.
the reminders, and for yourself to know, like, it's temporary, no one's hurt, everyone's okay, like they had a great time, it was a great experience. And yes, maybe I'm a little frazzled because I don't like my space being crazy,
Yeah.
but what the long game here, the long game, they had a great time, let's remind them to clean up. And so having that self-awareness and that understanding that, one, this is temporary, and two, is the good thing that came from it, right? What was the benefit that led to that? And because that is so much greater
Yeah.
than the aftermath,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And when you do the systemic long-term calm, right? When you take that long-term chaos and you work on that, the short-term chaos doesn't seem as difficult,
Hmm.
right? Those chaotic things don't affect the nervous system as
Yeah.
much because you've got kind of this consistency that you've been working on more
Hmm.
long term.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. So where do we start? Like it occurs to me that the mindset piece might be where we start, or do you suggest sort of implementing some simple like actionable steps to sort of help shift the mindset? Like where do we start?
So we start with what I like to call the brilliant basics.
Okay.
And yeah, so it's a list of 5 different things, and it is the least sexy list you will ever hear. It is it is so basic, but that's what makes them brilliant,
Hmm.
is when you get back to the basics, right? Instead of adding on more things to do, it's like, okay, well, now I need to figure out my calm. So let me add this app and put
Yeah.
this new thing into my routine. And it's like,
Hmm.
no, let's go all the way back. Fundamental human needs, right?
Okay.
So cheer. The C is for connection, connecting with, people and nature, so that you remember that you are a part of something bigger than just what is you're contained in these 4 walls and these humans that you live under this roof with, right? That you're a part of something bigger, connection. The second H, hydration. Are you hydrating yourself? Just like a plant, you're going to wither away when you're not hydrating. And our cells, they wither,
Hmm.
and you can't show up and be your best self if your cells are going, I'm struggling, I need water,
Yeah.
right? because then you pull from other resources and then other things break down, yada, yada. I'm not going to go into
Right.
physiology right now.
Right.
The third related to that E is eating well. Eating.
Mhm.
Are you sustaining yourself? Are you putting in sustenance and food into your body? Because a lot of times we feed everyone else and we forget to feed ourselves. And then when we realize, oh my God, I'm so hungry, we just go for the first thing we see in front of us versus what is the thing that would actually give me energy right now? What's the thing that I know would be best for my body and for my mind and make me feel good eating it, right? The fourth is exercise, movement. How do you move your body, get the natural serotonin and dopamine, all the happy hormones going by just movement, right? It's so needed as a human that in addition to putting things in, we also need to move this vessel around. And the fifth and final, which is one that usually gets booted so easily.
Yeah, I
You
can already
may,
guess what it
you
is.
already,
Yeah.
I mean, right? What do you think it is,
It's
Christy?
rest.
Yes,
Yeah, it's rest.
it's rest. It's
Yeah.
sleeping. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. There's so many studies and so much research to support the need for sleep.
Mm-hmm.
We need to turn off. We need to shut off the battery,
Yeah.
let the body do what it needs to do. It needs to take out the trash.
Yeah.
Right? When we sleep, the body's taking out the trash. It's forming the memories, it's processing emotions, it's processing the day, it's reinvigorating the organs. Like it's doing everything that it needs to be doing. These are basic,
Yeah.
basic. And we forget so often that these are the core fundamental needs of the human body.
I honestly, like, the whole time you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, it is wild to me that in motherhood now, particularly, these are 5 things that I actually need on a list, right? Like,
Yeah.
for me, at least before I had kids, these were things I just did regularly, like the back of my hand. It was like, great, I'm gonna meet some friends for happy hour. I'm gonna drink my water like clockwork at work because there was a water fountain and I just, sure, let me fill my water. I was bringing my lunch and making my dinners and going to workout classes with coworkers and going to sleep when it was time to sleep and no one was waking me up at 3 in the morning. Like it's a little shocking actually that this is where we get that we need a list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think because the society that we live in, our culture is one of the moms need to give up so much of themselves
Yeah.
for their families. And it's unfortunate, but that's the reality of the society we live in and the message that's pushed, right? And I think one thing, as much as, social media, good, bad, have all of your thoughts, I have so many about it, but one thing that I've found that's really wonderful about social media is that it's bringing to light, there are so many human beings that bring to light the struggles of what the mom is going through.
Totally.
Right. And we all follow,
Yep.
the same accounts because it's so relatable on how much we are struggling.
Yeah.
Right. How the moms are struggling because we're giving so much because society has said, this is what makes a good mom. Right. You give of yourself, you give and you give and you give. And we're also in this generation of, but we also want to do for ourselves, right? We want to grow our businesses and have and follow our passions and live our purposes, right? In these past like 2 generations, let's say, right? Which is a new concept in this society versus, the mom stays at home, the dad goes to work, she does all the home things. And then while the kids are all at school, she's hanging out with her friends and doing the housework and taking a nap and filling her cup in other ways. Granted, I'm not a 1950s housewife, so I can't say exactly.
Right.
I think there was a lot more drinking back then also, maybe.
I just pictured Betty Draper,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I am not an expert historian on this space, so maybe I'll curtail, that rant. But back to like the current state is that we need to be reminded of these basics because that's not been our messaging for
Yeah.
so long, that we need to take care of ourselves on this basic level so that we can show up as our best self for our kids, for our partner, for our colleagues, for our employees, for our bosses, for everything, right? For
Yeah.
our community at large.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this has been such a great example for me to see how slow, like, overall systemic change is, because I got the messages of, like, yeah, go do what you want to do. Put yourself on the moon if you want. Like, you can do anything and everything. That was the message I got, but it was almost like the the rest of it, the rest of the, we didn't get the rest of the message. It was like,
Mhm.
go be whoever you want, but really set up a support system. Like,
Mhm.
but and it's almost like it's like just the rest of what am I trying to say? It's like we're championing girls and women to make more for themselves, but we left out the part where they can't do it all. We can't do it all. We need the partners, we need the systems, we need the companies to fill in the gaps. Like, I don't know. That's a whole other topic, I guess. But the only other thing that came to mind as you're talking, and I have talked at length as well about social media, have my feelings about it, both positively and negatively, honestly, depends on the day. But something I say a lot is these creators, moms, I've talked to so many of them on the show that are normalizing a lot of this, talking about it. Um, it's the best thing.
Mhm.
The only thing I always say is, especially women and moms, we can talk ourselves in circles if we
Mhm.
don't actually start taking steps. And it doesn't mean you have to go knock on your congressman's door. It just means taking steps in your own home to actionably make changes. Nothing really is going to change, because my daughter is just going to see me talking about, all the things, but not actually modeling rest,
Mhm.
not modeling taking care of myself, not, modeling splitting the duties.
Mhm.
But it's hard because that feels like a really big step for me. And that's like going back to, it's like that systemic change takes so long. Like one seemingly like small step is actually like huge for the generation that's in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's a concept called the
The rant.
circles of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that this works is, the idea is that if every one person took care of just themselves, and then when they feel good and solid and like, all right, I've got this taken care of,
Yeah.
then you go to a circle bigger. That is your household, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's everyone you live with. Okay, does anyone else here need support? How can I help
Interesting.
them?
Yeah.
Right. And then once everyone in your household is taken care of, okay, go to your neighbors.
Yeah.
How's
It's so
everyone in
not
your,
how we do things, right? Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
No. Because so often, especially as women nurturers, right, we go straight to an outside circle and we forget to take care of this one.
Yeah.
Right. We're
Yeah.
like, oh, my neighbor needs help. Oh, my cousin needs a thing. Like, society needs a thing.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
the world needs a thing.
Yeah.
And we go out there and we go knock on the congressman's door,
I
and
know. That's
right.
totally. Totally.
But
Yeah.
if we all, isn't it fascinating to think of, if every single person first took care of themselves and then moved out, there would be no problem
Yeah.
with everyone being engaged. Mental health, like, we would have no one depressed and isolated,
Yeah.
and it would just, everyone would be connected and
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
It's an amazing concept, and it's unfortunate that that's not how our society
I
works,
know.
or that's not what's preached,
Yeah.
right? And again, like, it's our responsibility to model that for our children so they can see that,
Mm-hmm.
because that's our job. That's
Yeah.
our job and our biggest responsibility, to model for our kids what they think is right and wrong and appropriate, and the behaviors and things that they will then instinctually, as they get older, instinctually
Mm-hmm.
will do, because that's a part of their mental model and a part
Right.
of their design,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Ugh.
Totally. Okay. 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 So we have cheer. What what comes next? Where do we go next in
Mhm.
incorporating more calm?
So I would make a long list of all the things that are the biggest stressors, right? Like, what are the big stressors in your day, in your week, in your month, but namely in a day? Let's start there, right? Like, what are the things that every day that just, oh, it makes your nervous system, right?
Hmm.
Flare,
Hmm.
to go back to that. And to pick one of those things that if you had done this or done it differently or eliminate it completely,
Yeah.
right? That by doing that, that would actually help a whole bunch of other things, right? And starting with that one, right? If it's get rid of it, all right, build the infrastructure that you need to get rid of that thing, or just X, boop, boop, done, done. But
Hmm.
why I'm saying this and iterating more and like building upon that, like that one thing, is that you can't start a second. I mean, you can, but the success will only be there if you really solidify that one thing first
Hmm.
and then build on the second thing or remove or whatever it is that you're adding, start, stop, continue at that point.
Okay.
Right. And so one by one. So like for me, my first thing that I did when I found myself in this huge state of overwhelm, I said the 4 kids, traveling husband. I don't know if I said that before, but our business, my husband travels like 60% of the time,
Well,
maybe even more. Boy, depends. COVID, home, not
yeah.
COVID, not home.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
so like for myself, what I realized that one of my biggest stressors in the everyday was food management.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. So one of my biggest stressors in the everyday is food management.
Hmm.
And so what I did was create a meal plan,
Mm.
right? That works for me. Again, calm is different and stress is different for everyone. But for me, I needed to get a handle on food. I've got all these humans, they need to eat multiple times a day, every single day. And it's a shock every day at 4:30. Oh my God, dinner again? What are we gonna
I know.
do? It's
It's
like,
brutal.
it's this thing that every single day, why do
Yeah.
I forget?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So implementing a meal plan, and every Sunday, talking to my kids and my partner and saying, what are we going to have for meals this week? And then building the grocery list against that, and then shopping against that grocery list, made every day so much smoother for me.
Hmm.
So much. And on top of that, the intentionality, like the trickle effect of that was, okay, we're thinking not just about dinner, but also breakfast and lunch and snacks and all that. And then I'm getting ahead of what are the kinds of breakfasts that I enjoy having or would like to have, or things I can meal prep even. And so, all right, I'm being thoughtful about my eating, right?
Hmm.
I'm more mindful about what do I have in the house that I know that I can make a meal with so that I can feed myself well.
Hmm.
Or no, I'll be out. Okay, we're eating out dinner this night, or I'll be out during the day. So I'm going to have lunch, out or whatever. Do I need to bring food, or am I going to eat, out somewhere or having lunch with somebody? But the intentionality and being able to know, okay, this is where our sustenance is coming from. Here are the meals, that really hit so many different buckets
Yeah.
for me that I didn't even know at first. I just thought we're just taking care of dinner,
Yeah.
and realized that it had a ripple effect,
Yeah.
right, on other areas as well.
Yeah. That's a big one for me too. The meal thing and the eating thing. It's like I always joke with my husband when like, he comes home like what's for dinner? The kids are hungry. I'm like, you need to eat again. Like he's like, come on. But I'll be honest with you, that one feels too big for me to start with
Mm-hmm.
because I hate it. I hate it. And
Mm-hmm.
I know logically that being more intentional about it and planning it out will make me hate it less. But I hate it. And especially right now in the summer, I really struggle with, a lot of times on Sundays we're not home. We're at the beach or we're, we just are traveling a little bit more. And so I have not crossed my brain over into like, oh, it's okay if your prep day is Monday. You know, it's like I still feel like, well, if I haven't done it Sunday, then like the whole week is blown. But what did occur to me is that the morning getting my 5 and 3-year-old out of the house is oh, it's
Mm.
it's something.
Mhm.
It's something, and it's every day. Every day it is a struggle, and it's like I really, yeah, it feels like that thing that you just do over and over again, and it's hard and it sucks, and you're like, why am I doing it like this?
Mhm.
I need to think about that more. And it's not that I haven't thought about it before. I just haven't prioritized changing it, but it sets my day off every day as in not the right direction.
Mhm. Oh, I
Hard.
hear you, mama.
I know. I know you got 4 of them. I can't. How old are your kids?
Well, now,
Yeah, now.
they are 6 and 13,
Oh.
15 and 16.
Ooh, okay. Right.
Yeah.
Yep. But I mean, you've done it all the years. You know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like we have the
Mhm.
same fight over the shoes every day about putting them on. It's like, just put the shoes on. Just put the shoes on. We have to go.
Mhm.
God, oh my
Oh,
God.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Every day.
Yeah. All right. So we pick one thing and we start to grapple with that one thing and we build on it. Are there specific ways to sort of handle the stressors, or are there strategic ways to build that are worth mentioning? Like, are there, like, I guess what I'm saying is, are there tips and tricks or strategies for how we pick the things to work on and how we actually start to change them and make changes and do it? I don't know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'll start by saying there's a ton of them written in the book.
Yeah, I'm sure. I know. I know.
It is all listed out
I know.
beautifully.
I know. Give us a couple of bullet points and we'll I have the book. It's beautiful. And so I encourage everyone to get a copy, but we'll give you a little taste right now.
So I have it in the book. There's what I call the habit creation guide.
Okay.
And so for something that you're trying to build for yourself, and how do you build that thing? And so firstly, actually, let's step back, right? Like what are all the things that you want to do for yourself? What are the habits that you want to create?
Mhm.
Because when there's something that becomes a habit, right, if we define what the concept of habit is, it's something that we do instinctually. It doesn't take brain effort and physical effort, or at least not like this concerted, oh my gosh, I have to go and do this thing now, right?
Mhm.
It becomes so much easier because it's instinctual, it's habitual,
Yeah.
right? So how do you then go from, all right, this is something I want to do, to now it's a habit, right?
Mhm.
And so first, listing those things out. What are all the things that I feel like I want to be adding or subtracting, right,
Mhm.
from my life? And then sitting with each of those things and thinking about, what is the benefit of that? For what purpose? How will this benefit my life? And what are the things that if I add that, what else would it affect positively? Right?
Mhm.
What else? How else will this benefit my life? So let's say you want to exercise more. That's one of the things on your list. How will that benefit beyond just like, yes, there's, all right, that's hitting off one of the E's of the brilliant basics, of course, but also the trickle effect of that is the happy hormones, right?
Mhm.
When I've exercised, I feel like I've done something for myself. I've invested in my future healthy body so that I can live longer, so that I can, hopefully hang out with grandkids and great grandkids and all the things, that I have more energy for the day ahead. Or if you exercise at night, like I'll have a better sleep later. Like it helps with sleep. It helps with being intentional around the food that you maybe want to put into your body, because you're like, oh, I exercised. The first thing, I'm not going to go eat a Snickers right after I had a great workout, right? You're probably going to choose something that is going to fuel you differently,
Mhm.
right? Fuel you in a beneficial way. So going through that list, how does this benefit? And then picking the one that has the biggest ripple effect. What's the one thing that will help ripple more things in a positive way? And then building an infrastructure that supports that habit. right? So if, again, let's stick with exercise, right? I'm going to tell my husband, I'm going to tell my kids, even if they're 5 and 3 and they don't fully get it, right? I can say it in words that they'll understand. You know, mama is going to go to the gym, or or even it's just at home. Let's say, let's go really small. Let's go to the real, like the habit creation that I talk about in the book. Let's not even talk about gym yet. So I'm going to exercise. I'm going to start exercising and moving my body. I'm going to tell my husband, I'm going to get whatever I need to get. For me, maybe you don't need to get anything, right? Fewer is better always. And you know, like if you don't need to buy things, then don't, which is great. But so, and then, so like, let's say you want to start doing yoga. Let's do that. Like yoga, that's my exercise. That's what's going to make me feel good. Maybe you get a mat, maybe you just do it on, you know, your carpet or whatever, but I'm going to commit to doing 1 minute. 1 minute. Start so small that it's embarrassing to say out loud. Honey, I am committing to doing 1 minute of yoga every morning before I leave the bedroom, right? I wake up, I do my minute, and then I brush my teeth and get on with the day. Right. And so, and letting everyone know that this is your commitment to self, and then building slowly off of that 1% improvements, but still having it be, it's so small that you can't not do it. Everyone can do 1 minute of cat cow, or, you know, whatever it is. Everyone can commit to that. Even the most tired, stressed, whatever. If you're determined, this is something you really want to do, you will make that time. You'll make that 1 minute. Because it's important to you. You're investing in your future self. You're investing in the person that you want to be, the person that you want to be, who's moving for 30, 45 minutes a day, 3 days a week, is starting small. That person is making that commitment to self. What would your future person, the future self that you're trying to be, what are they looking for today? So you're putting that deposit in your account for yourself, or investing in you.
Yeah. I'm glad you said, you know, make it so small that you're embarrassed to say it, because I know that I've always underestimated that. I've always underestimated the power in just committing to something for a small period of time, or a small amount of days a week, or whatever it is. It's like, I want to be able to just be the person, using this example, that's 45 minutes, 4 days a week of exercise. I just want to be it. I just want to skip all the steps. But we can't. And it's not as successful if we skip all the steps. So I'm glad you said that. And I think when I took from it too is, this might be obvious, but I always have to remind myself this, that it's like, it's not necessarily even being embarrassed to say it to another person. It's really just embarrassed to say it to myself. You know, it's like giving yourself the okay to just commit for 1 minute. Like, it's harder for me to accept that for myself than it would be like if I said that to my husband. He'd be like, great, babe, do it. It's me that goes, you're only doing a minute. You can't do 5. You can't do 10. You know, I'm the one that's hard on myself. So it's more about being embarrassed to myself. It's anyone else.
But you know, what's interesting in that is that when you make that commitment, all right, I'm making that commitment for 1. Oh my God. Like, of course, like I'm going to do 5, I'm going to do 10, whatever, like that critical voice in your head. What's great is that it's like, 1's just the minimum. 1's the minimum. So you can do 5, you can do 10, you can do 45, sure. But as long as you do that, you stick to the 1, because there's the days.
You got to be consistent.
You got to be consistent, because there are the days where you're like, I don't have the time or the energy or whatever it is, the motivation to do the 45 minutes. So let me go back and at least just do my 1. So you don't break, you don't start a new habit of not doing it. Right. Because it's so easy to stop what you're doing, because you're like, oh, I don't have everything in place. All the stars are not aligning for me to do 45 minutes of 4 days a week, but rather, okay, if I can't do that, at least I'm doing my 1 minute, and I can feel good of like, I'm still doing this. And you're anchoring also the body and the mind in your like your circadian rhythms almost, right? Like the rhythm of the body, and that okay, at this time, on this day, this is what the body does. And
Yeah.
that's where it becomes,
Muscle
again,
memory.
instinctual, that muscle memory of
Yeah.
like, wake up, do some cat cow. All right, go on with my day.
Yeah.
Right. And so it just, that 1 minute is so important to, even if you can't do the 5, the 10, whatever, and you can
Yeah.
tell, you know, that negative voice, right, that's saying, what? It's like,
She's so darn loud.
she's so loud. You can even commit. Let's say you're like, I'm going to do 10 minutes today. Great. But you start and you're like, oh man, I don't like, my brain is spinning. My brain is spinning. I actually can't continue right now. It's like, oh, but I got my minute done.
Right.
Because that's the underlying goal and commitment to yourself, to do just 1 minute.
Yeah.
At least you did it.
Yeah.
Right.
Lindsay Kazuba talks a lot about this. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but I think you guys would be like two peas in a pod. She loves the habit stacking and just actually like thinking of your example of like a minute of cat cow. Like she's always, every morning she'll get on her stories and be like doing her yoga, and she'll say some days it's a half hour and some days her kids run in and it's 7 minutes, but it's every day. And so it just reminded me of that. I want to ask you, do you have any advice on how someone could have a conversation, because a lot of this does require support from other people. A lot of
Mhm.
it is going to require support and a change in a lot of times your overall household flow and dynamic if you're really starting to make changes as sort of the matriarch of the house, right? Like this is going to have some changes all around. Any advice on how to approach this conversation with a partner or whoever is in the house with you all the time?
Mm-hmm. Actually, one of the chapters is called communication.
There you go.
And there's a part of the chapter that's written actually by my husband
Ah,
on
interesting.
how, so I, from my approach, right, as the person wanting to make the change, right, how do you approach your partner and, or whoever else lives with you? How do you approach everyone so that they can be supportive of the shifts that you're trying to make, but
Mhm.
also from his perspective of being the partner, how can you get
I
your
love that.
partner on board also?
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So there's varying perspective within the book about exactly that question.
I love that.
And the way that I would start is by just sharing what it is that you're trying to accomplish and why it's important to you,
Mm.
right? Why it's important to you and how it positively impacts everyone,
Mhm.
right? What's that, again, that ripple effect that everyone will feel. You better for them. They're like, oh, so you exercising helps me because you have more energy, you're less tense, and you're not going to be argumentative with me all the time and testing, being like, rah,
Yeah.
and then maybe even have more energy at night to have some time together before bed or whatever it is, right? If it benefits them, that's a win for your partner,
Yeah.
right? So getting them on board and telling the kids also at different ages, different ways to approach them, but getting them on board by sharing, here's something that I'm doing and how it's going to make mommy feel better. It's going to make
Yeah.
mommy happier, want to play more, less stressed. I'm not going to yell so much when your toys are everywhere,
Mhm. Mhm.
but it's really sharing with them why this is important, how it benefits you, why it's in line with your values, right? And then also how it benefits them, because that's what they care about, truly. And for the most part, kids, especially young kids, like how are they going to benefit from these changes?
Yeah.
Right. For your partner and teens and whatever, they want what's best for you anyway. So they'll be on board. Oh, honey, you're doing this for you so that you can feel better. Great.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want you to be stressed. I want you to feel good and to feel calm, and want you to be yourself in your calm self, for
Mhm.
sure. But it's icing on the cake. How does it benefit them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. So where now that you've been, I mean, I don't want to assume, I've heard you give other interviews, and so I'm just going to say this, and if I'm incorrect, you've stopped me, but this all came about because you had reached a point of chaos beyond comfort, and it was like, I need to make some changes, and it was about, taking the notes on what you were doing, and here's your book. Um where was my train of thought on that? Oh, I know what it was. Now that you are kind of consider like for how some time now been living this life this way with the infrastructure and the focus to calm, are there areas that you still struggle with or that give you pause or that you're still tweaking? What are they and how are you doing that?
Ooh, it's a good one. So yes, short answer is yes, I'm still a permeable human being.
Mm-hmm.
I'm, my kids we're non-static people,
Right.
and there's so much movement in the home, just as we have 4 kids who are ever evolving and changing. So I get unearthed still too, because I have seasons,
Yeah.
right? I have seasons and they have seasons, and not all of our seasons, decide to flow at the same time. But like one major thing that really threw me off my calm, that I needed to be reintroduced to my own calm systems, and this actually worked really well when I was editing my book, was my daughter was going through a major health crisis.
Mm.
And for those who've have had their child go through major crises before, it's really unearthing. And there's then kind of the calibration of how much energy output is all off, right? I ended up giving so much and getting so consumed by the needs in that of these new needs that I wasn't sleeping, right? And when I would try to sleep, like I would wake up because my nervous system was shot, because I was so unearthed and overwhelmed by what was happening and what was going on. And at the same time, I was editing my book, which was perfect timing.
That's the universe, man. Just being
right?
like, here you go, Jenna.
It's like, thank you,
Yeah.
divine timing. And it reminded me, oh yeah, here are the things that you need to do to take care of you so that you can show up best for her and for the rest of the family, because it turned our whole family upside down.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Right. So how can I, as the matriarch of our family and the COO of our household, hold it together?
Yeah.
Right. Because if our wheels fall off, the bus is stopping.
Yeah.
Right. No one else is putting on new wheels, and no one's showing up and being like replacement wheels. No, it's ours, unless you the husband, the partner, or whoever, knows like, oh, I'm just going to step in and take over. That's generally not the case. We need to communicate generally our needs in that way proactively, but we weren't to know. How were we to know? We didn't have this like, oh, this thing is going to uproot your life. So go and have conversations around how you're going to support this time and be intentional about making sure that the wheels don't fall off.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, the short answer is yes. And even when, and it doesn't have to be also that there's a huge crisis for the overwhelm to sneak back in. Right. But, I notice it sometimes, especially during big transitions.
Yeah.
And maybe I didn't get ahead of it too as well as I could have, right? Being proactive, which is another topic in the book. Like if I wasn't as intentional about being proactive, I find that again to overwhelm, like summer break.
Yeah.
We're in summer break now. We just went, from a very structured routine for school for the past however many months, right? For 3/4 of a year into summer where everything is different.
Yeah.
And just like so many other parents, right? My days got upended, and structures and routines, everything is off and different. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have the first 2 weeks. It's like, I have so much to do. But I've got so many, things in the household, the humans got to be driving them to different camps and showing up for this and making the meals at different times and blah, 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 all the things, and didn't structure my days appropriately with like remembering, oh my gosh, the first 2 weeks of summer are always really difficult. I should have put, like, if I had remembered, I would have put out my calls. I would have pushed everything out further. I would have let put out my out of office or my
Yep.
auto response on my emails, letting everyone know summer transition time. I'm getting back to email slower than usual, but I will get back to you. And so I was in this place of feeling a little of more chaotic, but because I have this infrastructure for my mind that I've been cultivating all these years, that I didn't let it own me. I didn't let it consume me of like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad.
Yeah.
And I'm getting so hard on myself for feeling like I'm dropping the ball on emails and on other people's needs, or asking for like, let's go get coffee, and me not being great about responding to that, or scheduling other things, like whatever the examples are, that I could give myself grace in that. And be like, it's short term. All these people will understand when I tell them, sorry, first 2 weeks were crazy. I'm back now.
Yeah.
We're back on track.
Yeah. It's one of the things I struggle with most is the grace part, right? It's like, because I totally understand everything you're saying. I feel like the end of the school year to summer, that transition, and as soon as Halloween is over through the new year, are the two times of year where I am just like, what is happening? I need to get a handle on things. Things are changing. School schedules are wild. They're in school, they're not in school. They've got a concert this day. I mean, my daughter's 5. She's in pre-K. She had 2 graduations, a Mother's Day brunch, a Father's Day dinner. It was adorable, but it was just like, what is, like, she's 5 and she's one little person, and we had like all of these events for her. But I struggle with that aspect of it, of like, darn it, like, you knew this was coming. Like, same as you, block your calendar. Stop thinking that you are going to calmly handle a day full of interviews and preschool graduation on this at the same time. Like, just stop. Don't do that to yourself. Like, it's hard though. It's hard. It's something I haven't thought about in a long time, because I've gotten a lot better about it, but it reminds me of when I started therapy, and I would just say to my therapist, like, how do I get to the point where I'm just not affected by anything? And she's like, that's not really the point. It's like, this is like similar. It's like, how do I just get to the point where transitions don't bother me and everything's just under control all the time? And it's like, it's just not going to happen.
No, because you're human.
I know. I don't like it. Oh my God. Yeah, I know. It's hard. It's hard to
You know
just
what's
give yourself a
great?
break. Yeah.
You know what's really great is when you see, if we reframe for a second, or not even reframe, but rather like, if we see what's the gift in this, or what's the benefit in the noticing that I didn't do the things.
Yeah.
And if there is, let's say, a ripple effect from that negatively, or maybe it's just inside of yourself, but let's say it goes out, that, your partner feels it, your kids feel it, that you're stressed, and you're sitting there at the graduation, like, oh my God, I'm supposed to be doing so many other things right now, and I've been to 3 of these. That we can, again, go back to that role modeling and making reparations, and that we can talk to our partner and say, I'm really sorry that I was on edge. I didn't get ahead of my schedule. I forgot, that I should do my time blocking, whatever it is. And to communicate, because then you can build trust, right? The silver lining and the gift is being able to show all of our colors to those who it impacts, and be able to come back and build those trusting relationships with each other by saying, I'm so sorry that I was that way. This is the reason why, and I'm going to do better. I'm going to try to do better. I'm going to try to remember this for next spring, next summer. And same with the kids, right? Like, with everyone it impacts, to be able to foster those conversations, that then it builds better connection between you, and better relationship building. And then it also role models for them, this is what that looks like, and they're more apt to do that in their future.
Yes. You're right. I know you're right.
You
All
got
right.
this, Christy.
I know. Thank you. Is there anything that you wish I would have asked you that I didn't think to? Anything
No,
kind of
I mean,
lingering?
there are so many things that we could talk about, Christy. I feel like we could go for hours.
I know.
And,
I know.
if you were to ask me another question right now, who knows where we would go?
Yeah, I know. And
But yeah, this feels complete. This
okay.
feels good.
Okay. Is there any lingering or final, anything on your heart, mind, or soul that you want to make sure to leave people with? Any final message or words of wisdom from the Queen of Calm? I love it. I'm not saying it at all. Like I'm mocking it. I just like adore it so much. I love it.
Thank you. One thing I'd say is that this is all temporary.
Mm,
The hard
mm,
that we're experiencing right now is not the same hard that we will experience in the future. This is temporary. The kids being 3 and 5 and having pre-K graduations and all of that. This is a one-time
yeah.
thing, right? And to, in your efforts of owning your calm, to remember that these moments are fleeting, that they
Mhm.
are temporary. They don't happen again. Your kids will never have a summer again where they're 3 and 5. And that these are and the stuff that we're stressing about, the things that are ours to own, right? Like email comms and interviews and all of that, that will all be there after. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And to be present for what's happening for these fleeting moments is everything, because once it's done and it doesn't come back. There's no
Um,
redos.
yep. Yep. Okay. Jenna, I'm gonna go make my list now. Oh my God. It's just, it's I'm good until like you said, the season changes and it's like I gotta do it again.
Mhm.
Gotta reevaluate. So all right. Well, thank you, Jenna. I will link your book and the ways to get in touch with you and work with you in the show notes. And just thank you so much for your time and for being here.
Oh, thank you, Christy. This was so much fun. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, yes. Okay. So this is something I need right now. You heard in the episode that we recorded this over the summertime, but at the time that this is airing, my kid just started school today. We are transitioning back into the school year, and this is just oh so relevant for so many parents I know who are feeling completely overwhelmed by the school year starting, summer ending, all of the things. The 2 points that I want to reiterate are about the definition of calm and the 5 core needs. So, first off, Jenna defines calm as a state of the nervous system where we don't feel overwhelmed or frazzled. It's about feeling good, in flow, and having that internal positive energy. And what I want to reiterate specifically is that this is going to look different for everyone. I resonated with what she was saying about her husband, about feeling calmer when the environment is quote unquote calm, aka quiet and clean. But for others, including Jenna, perhaps even my husband, there are times when noise and movement are actually very calming. So I remind us of this because I think that, like I just said for my husband, maybe even my kids at times, their desire for calm may not look or feel the same as mine. And I have to remember this when I am at times projecting onto them what I think is calm. So perhaps we've been very active, or there's music and the TV on at the same time, and I am slowly losing it. I might be the only one bothered by those things. And that doesn't mean I shouldn't address them, but addressing them differently, addressing them from my point of view and not as a general standard for what calm means. Something to think about. And then the 5 core needs, using cheer, connection, hydration, eating well, exercise, and rest. I said on the show, and I'll say it again, it's kind of amazing to me and mind boggling that we women and moms need an acronym to remind us of these things. But the truth is that we do. So here's your reminder, check in with yourself. What do you need and how can you get it? All right, I encourage everyone to pick up a copy of Jenna's book. It is linked in the show notes. If you want to take a deeper dive on going from chaos to calm, and I mean truly, who doesn't? So thank you, Jenna. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Sass Says is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. This podcast is meant to be educational and not meant to replace professional therapy or professional medical attention. To learn more about today's show and what's new in my world, head over to sasssays.com. Thanks so much. Talk later.